So you're wondering what the cost of living in Kansas City is? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 categories that are going to probably impact your world as well as mine. And especially if you are trying to be on a budget or you're trying to learn more about your budget, then this video is going to give you some insight into the cost of living here in the Kansas City metropolitan area. I'm also going to be sharing with you some tools that you can actually use and plug in some websites that you can figure out as you're budgeting, and hopefully it will give you some insight into the cost of living where you're coming from, comparably speaking to the cost of living here in Kansas City. And it'll help you kind of understand a little bit about the costs and understand a little bit about this city before you make the decision to come to Kansas City. If we've never met before, my name's Anita Cordell. I'm a licensed real estate agent, and I make videos about all things Kansas City: where to eat, where to sleep, where to live, where to play. I talk about the weather. I talk about recreation and what kinds of things to do around our amazing city. And so you'll want to subscribe to this channel, click that bell if you like the videos. And obviously my contact information is below in case you want to schedule a time to meet with me. It goes right to my calendar and you'll be able to have a conversation with me so that we can talk about real estate goals. So the first thing I want to do is share with you this website. It is absolutely one of my favorite tools to use. I tell my clients about this all the time, and so if you are considering moving to Kansas City or anywhere, it's called bestplaces.net. This website is amazing. It is absolutely hands down a favorite of clients of mine, and it's super easy to actually use. All you have to do is put your city that you are coming from into the website and put the city that you're considering moving to into the website. And you can actually see all kinds of categories that come out. You can see where the city ranks when it comes to a national average number. And it covers all kinds of categories. It covers food, housing, utilities, transportation. It covers healthcare costs. It covers gas prices and commuting. It covers personal expenses. Sometimes people will even actually go on the website and put reviews on the website that you can read. Some of them, obviously, you might not agree with, and other ones you will agree with, but there's reviews on there. It also covers taxes, childcare, and obviously you can upgrade and pay a little bit of a fee to get a little bit more insight into this website, but I don't have an upgraded subscription, and a lot of my clients don't either. There's even an interactive map on this website where you can actually click on certain cities and states and just see where the cost is in terms of that city. There's all kinds of information on this website, and I think that you're going to love it. We're going to talk about some of the details of this website when it comes to Kansas City and the numbers of Kansas City. Now, the 5 categories that I'm going to discuss in today's video that are going to really impact you and your budget and your pocketbook are groceries, housing, utilities, healthcare, and transportation. The reason why I picked these 5 is because really those 5 are the ones that affect everyone's pocketbook seemingly more than most other categories. So let's get right into the list. The first category that I want to talk about is groceries. Now, the cost of living in Kansas City is, for the most part, lower than other cities around the nation, comparably speaking. When it comes to groceries, there are quite a number of options for you to choose from. Now, when it comes to like stocking the refrigerator, all of that is perspective, right? I mean, you may have a family of 5 and you have 3 teenage boys. That's going to be completely different than a family of 5 that's got 3 little kiddos under the age of 6. So I'm bringing to you all of this perspective, but there are a lot of different ways to make a decision on your groceries. Some people are a lot more frugal, and then other people want to sacrifice health and buy only organic at certain locations. So the cost of groceries is going to be determining on your family and your situation and what incentivizes you regarding your lifestyle. So one of the grocery stores that is really popular here in the Kansas City area that helps to keep costs down is Aldi. Aldi is hands down so many people's favorite store to go to. They have all kinds of deals. In fact, they've come out with some news articles that they're actually going to be working on slashing some of their costs. Now, when it comes to costs and going to Aldi, one of the things that keeps the costs down is they really incentivize people to take ownership of helping with the costs of shopping there. So one of the things that they do is they incentivize the shoppers to put their carts back. And so it keeps all the costs down, so they don't have to actually hire more staff to take care of carts that are outside in the parking lot. They have these little locks on the carts, and these locks incentivize shoppers to put the cart back, because what you do is you put a quarter in it and it unlocks the next cart. And then when you go and put the cart back, you pop the lock back in and you get your quarter back. So if you go to Aldi, make sure that you take a quarter with you so that you can get a cart. The other thing that they do is they incentivize you to bring your own bag. So a lot of people who shop at Aldi have like a stash of recyclable bags that they take. I know I do. And then when you go in there, you just pull out your own bags and you're good to go. The other thing that they do is they allow for people to utilize the boxes that the groceries come in. And so those are just some examples of how Aldi tries to keep their costs down. And people absolutely love shopping at Aldi. Now, I'm going to share my personal budget with you, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about my family situation so that you understand where I'm coming from and the perspective of cost of groceries. We have 2 college kids in our household. One of them lives at home and one of them lives on campus. And then my husband is actually a truck driver, and so he is not home all the time. He's home some of the time, but not every single night. So our household has changed through the years, where used to me and my husband, and we had 6 kids at home because I used to foster kids. We have 3 of our own kids, and then we fostered long care placement of 3 siblings. So at one point we had me and my husband, and we had 6 kids, and 4 of them I think were teenagers at the same time. So our budget on our household groceries has decreased tremendously. However, I have a teenage son. He's 19 years old right now at the time of this video, and almost turning 20. And he works out like he's a buff dude, and he eats a ton of protein. And so I'm constantly having to buy meats and chickens and all this kind of stuff. So my grocery bill has shifted through the years, yet I don't feel like it's astronomical. Some of you guys might listen to my budget and go, oh my goodness, I cannot do that. But anyway, mainly the 3 people, my husband, myself, and my college son at home, we spend probably about $250 every single week on groceries. How we have determined that is I will shop at Aldi. There are other places that if somebody wants to buy like organic or whatever, there's other places in Kansas City that you could go to. We've got farmers markets where you can only spend a certain amount on. We also have Price Chopper and Hy-Vee. Both of those have a lot of organic groceries in them as well. We also have Sprouts, which is a very competitive whole foods store. And then we also have the standard warehouse groceries, which is Costco and Sam's. Now, we are a Costco family, and I definitely like Costco, but I spend a little more money there than what I should. Now, you know my budget. You know that we spend, X amount, about $250 a week on groceries. And yet there are some things that I do that help me keep my budget down. Now, I'm going to tell you about this app. I don't know if you've heard of Instacart, but I absolutely love Instacart. And here's the reason why. One of my weaknesses is going into like say a warehouse like Costco or even Aldi or is sometimes even Walmart or whatever. You see, we're going into the store. I have a problem when I go into the store, I will usually come out with more than what's on my list. However, Instacart has really helped me to maintain a budget. Then what I do is I order it from Instacart. I can choose from the list of stores that are on Instacart. I save money, believe believe it or not, even though I have it delivered. And yes, I have it delivered. My adult daughter always asks me, Mom, why do you pay for the delivery fee on Instacart? Why don't you just go to the store and pick it up, or go into the store and just do your own grocery shopping? Well, my philosophy is that if I have maintaining my budget, and going into a store is almost therapeutic for me, which it is, I will sometimes spend more money than what I need to. So I'm okay spending the $15 extra to have it delivered to my door so that I don't spend an extra $100 at the store when I don't use the app. It's all perspective. It's all how you live your lifestyle, and that's how I live mine. But I just wanted to talk about groceries. I will say this, the groceries are lower here in Kansas City, I feel, than where I've gone and I've traveled and what have you. So that's kind of it on groceries. You've got a lot of different options when it comes to stores, and there's some tools that you can use to help your grocery bill down. And those are just a few of the things that I do. Next on our list is housing. So according to bestplaces.net, the Kansas City metropolitan area ranks 84.9% according to their national average. So that means that we are about 15 points lower than the national average here when it comes to housing. Now, I sell real estate, and so every single month there is a give and take of whether or not that number is accurate. Now, the national average at the time of this video is about $430,000. When I looked up this weekend, the average for the Kansas City metropolitan area, it actually was $432,000. So we're right neck and neck when it comes to national average. However, you're probably wondering, like, how are we 15 points lower than the national average when it comes to housing costs? It really is going to be a perspective of what you get when it comes to the housing. Perspective is everything. So what you get for $432,000 as an average in the Kansas City metropolitan area is a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath home. You're talking about probably a 3-car garage, and you're looking at about 3,000 square feet. Versus in other parts of the country, you're gonna spend that same amount of money for a potentially 2-bedroom home. Also, another reason why that point level on bestplaces.net is lower is because our rent is actually not that bad here in Kansas City. In fact, you can get a small apartment for about $1,500. That might be a 1-bedroom apartment. Then you can get a 2-bedroom apartment for about $2,500. And then there's going to be certain pockets of the Kansas City metropolitan area that are going to be cheaper, obviously, but then there's going to be some areas that are going to be a little bit more. But again, all is perspective, because I have listened to people who are moving into other parts of the country, and they might spend $4,000 on a 2-bedroom apartment. That's just baffles my mind. But all of those perspectives as far as housing costs are concerned is the reason why we are 15 points below the national average. Also too, it's not just about the housing, it's about the lifestyle. So let's talk about the lifestyle when we're here in the Midwest, especially when you're looking at the housing costs. You're gonna get some really cool things about Kansas City. You've got the culture, you've got easy access to a ton of universities, and I'm not just talking about 1 or 2. We have a lot of universities within a 30 to 45 minute drive of just about anywhere. That includes universities as well as really top-notch community colleges as well. And then we've got some trade schools, some nursing programs, all of those things play into it. So there's easy access to the universities. There's also the drive time when it comes to work. It is very common for people to only drive 15 to 20 minutes to work. But if they do drive a little bit farther, they're okay with driving 45 minutes to their job. It's literally near perfect when it comes to the commute here in Kansas City. Also too, we have a lot of different communities in our city. There's lake communities, there's 55 plus communities. There's just a lot of diversity when it comes to your choices of housing. You can live downtown, you can live in a condo, and some of the condos are less than $200,000. You can get a duplex and rent out the other side for less than $350,000. There's a lot of parts to the Kansas City area that make the lifestyle very diverse and something that you can choose from when it comes to housing. Another thing about our lifestyle is we are just like 3 hours away from the Lake of the Ozarks and Branson, 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours, depending on how far in you go. Living here, in my opinion, is a steal of a deal, and you get all kinds of options when it comes to lifestyle. If you want a lake community and want to be a beach person with a boat, you can have that. If you want something else, a condo lifestyle where you don't even own a car, you can have that too. So I feel like Kansas City has a lot of options when it comes to housing, and it's no wonder that we are 15 points lower than the national average. Now I want to share another tool that I know you are going to love, and it's all about the cost of living. So if you go to Forbes cost of living calculator, if you run a search for that, to go to this website and put in your salary, and when you put in your salary, you are of what you're currently making in your current location, and then you plug in Kansas City area, you can push the button that says calculate, and it'll calculate whether or not you are equivalent or what the salary is that you need to live in to maintain that same lifestyle that you're currently living in your current city. It's fantastic and I love it. If we are going to do an example and say you are living in Atlanta right now and considering moving to Kansas City, and say you make $70,000, so you plug $70,000 into your salary, and then you would put that you're living in Atlanta, you're moving to Kansas City, and you would push the calculate button. What you'll come up with is a percentage of how much money you need to make equal to what you're doing now to make your lifestyle pretty similar to what you live in Atlanta. Wherever you are moving from, just plug in that city and plug in Kansas City, and it will show you kind of a cost perspective when it comes to salary. This website is fantastic, and people love just to get the data and to see where they're at comparably speaking, especially if you're coming from a more expensive city and you move to Kansas City and you get a raise, it's gonna potentially change where you might live in Kansas City and how much money you spend on a home. I love sharing this website with my clients because it gives perspective, and it also helps you determine, do I want to move and become a Midwest baby, or do I want to live somewhere else? And if you guys need help in answering any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My contact information is below, and there's even a calendar link where all you have to do is click on that calendar link. It goes right to my calendar, and you can schedule a time for us to have a video conference call. All right, so let's keep rolling on number 3. That is the category of utilities. Now, I know the utilities seem to be on the rise, and there's a lot of things that are going on in different states. That I've heard of one state that actually is increasing their utilities 40%. Now, according to bestplaces.net, the Kansas City metropolitan area is ranked 101.4%, comparably speaking to the national average. So that's about 1.5% higher than the national average. Now, I'm going to tell you about my budget and what I spend on utilities and share with you a little bit about that. Now, keep in mind, I live in an all brick house. We have a basement. Our home is a 5-bedroom, 5.5 bath home. Our basement is finished, and when it was built with like double insulation. So it was very well constructed home, and I feel like our utilities are really good, comparably speaking. We've lived in another style of home, and our utilities with that home was probably almost half the size of this one, and our utilities were almost the same. So again, perspective in the sense that it's going to be determining on where you live, the style of home that you live. Is it a newer home? Is it an older brick home? But what we spend is on Evergy. Evergy is our electric. We spend about $325 a month. And then on Spire, which is gas, obviously in the wintertime when you're heating your house, we spend about $350 a month on gas when it comes to the winter time. But once the summer and the spring and the fall happen and we turn that heater off, the utility bill goes almost half. It's about $170. And so that's what our bill is with that. Water, we spend on average $225, depending on if trying to plant a garden again or whatever. It's just all perspective, but that's average around what we spend each month. If you are living at, say, a lake community, or you have a swimming pool, obviously your water is going to be a different amount. You know, you're going to have a lot of guests coming over. You might have extra showers. You know, you've got your pool to take care of and clean, all of that stuff. So it's just going to really depend on your lifestyle. For our trash, we spend about $75 every 3 months. There are a lot of communities that have an HOA, which is a homeowners association. Sometimes the homeowners association will cover the trash and recyclable bills. Other times it will not. So make sure that you read the rules. Make sure that you know whether or not you're going to have to pay for it separately or whether or not it's going to come out of your HOA bill or not. Our HOA does not cover trash, and so we have to pay for it on our own. So that's just something. And there's a lot of trash companies here in Kansas City that you can actually tap into and get quotes on and just read reviews and make sure that you find a place that you like to go to. The number 4 category that I'm going to talk about when it comes to the cost of living in Kansas City is transportation. So I wanted to tell you that on bestplaces.net, Kansas City ranks as 88.2%. You can see, again, according to the national average, the Kansas City metropolitan area is about 13 points lower when it comes to transportation in this category. One of the reasons why I think that this number could be a little less is one, which I mentioned before and I've mentioned a lot in my videos, is the fact that Kansas City is a really good commuter town. It only takes about 45 minutes to get from one side of the city to the other. And so if you are driving to work and your commute is a lot less than, say, the national average or even some big cities that are out there, comparably speaking, it's obviously going to be less when it comes to transportation. Now, the other thing is there are so many grocery stores, there's so many communities here, there's a lot of places to go in certain pockets of the community. And so there's some people that hardly ever have to drive very far at all. They go to church in their community, they go grocery shopping in their community, or they have it delivered like I do. They just spend a lot less time out and about in the community. And so therefore the transportation costs are obviously going to be less. There's another thing too, I think, that contributes to it is the fact that here in Kansas City, we have a ton of car dealers. I mean, literally, it's almost like there's a car dealer on every single corner. So when that happens, you might be able to price compare and get a little bit of a deal, maybe. I don't know. To me, there's a lot of competition when it comes to car dealers. Now for us, we try our very best to pay cash for our cars. Every once in a while, we'll have a car payment for a little while, but for the most part, we try and pay cash for them. The other thing about transportation that I wanted to note is our potholes. My opinion is that for the most part, the Kansas City metropolitan area does a really good job of making sure that potholes are at bay. Now, that's not the case all across the city, but where I travel, potholes aren't very common. I will say this, that a couple years ago, my son borrowed my car for prom, and the location for where the prom dance was way out in an outer city. And so he had to drive pretty far to go to this location. It was way out, and they had to drive, you know, in some of those back roads. And I get this call late at night, and he hit a pothole and it destroyed my tire. So I have personal experience with some of the potholes, and even though that happened, I'm just saying that they're not that bad. It did, though, rip my tire to shreds, and I was mortified, and obviously nobody's going to pay for that. The city's not going to pay for that. But I feel that for the most part, transportation here would comply with that 87% lower than national average ranking. Then another thing about transportation is the winter time. I also feel like when you buy a car here in Kansas City, they do a pretty good job of just going ahead and prepping the car for winter time. I mean, I don't think that our winters here are absolutely horrible. I think that this last winter, the schools only got like a 4 days of snow, and so it wasn't overtly bad. But I feel like when it comes to transportation, most of the cars are already prepped for snow or even those icy days. So that does keep the costs down, so you're not having to actually constantly getting new tires and the whole bit. But I feel like just making good choices about your car and your transportation is good. So another thing about keeping the costs down when it comes to transportation is the fact that Kansas City literally does not have toll roads. You can go all across the Kansas City metropolitan area and not pay any toll roads. We don't have them here. You have to drive 3 or 4 hours away, like Wichita or down in Oklahoma, or even, you know, farther down into Texas. We just don't have toll roads here. I think that probably contributes to having lower transportation costs as well, especially when you have a big city. I mean, we almost have 2.3 million people in the Kansas City metro area, and to not have toll roads is pretty cool. Now, another thing that is potentially a contributing factor to keeping the transportation costs low is the fact that there are a lot of people who live in downtown Kansas City that have gotten rid of their cars, believe it or not. You don't have to have a car if you live in downtown Kansas City. You can rent, you can buy a condo, and downtown is walkable. You can walk pretty much everywhere. There's grocery stores down there, hair salons, there's a farmer's market, there's activities galore down there. And then if you want to go somewhere outside of the Kansas City downtown area, you can hop on the bus and ride the bus, or you can ride the KC streetcar. And then what some people do is they will Uber if they need to go, outside of a certain area, or they'll, ride share with somebody in carpool or whatever. But I literally know of people that have moved downtown and gotten rid of their car. Now, I live in the suburbs, so obviously I drive a lot, and I'm a real estate agent, so I drive a lot. If I were to Uber from my house to, say, the Kansas City airport, depending on the time of the day and depending on the day, I'm gonna spend maybe $45. Sometimes it's actually more economical to just Uber to the airport than to park my car. The last category, number 5, that I'm gonna talk about when it comes to the cost of living in Kansas City is healthcare. According to bestplace.net, when it comes to Kansas City, we rank 102.3 based on the national average. Now, I have a few thoughts as to why that is. One, when they were looking at the numbers, they didn't quite grab like all the Kansas City metropolitan area. They grabbed like the heart of it. But I think there's 2 reasons why we might be a little bit more expensive. One, in the city of Kansas City, Missouri, you've got a ton of hospitals like St. Luke's, you've got Truman Medical Center, you've got Research Medical Center, you've got St. Joseph, and there's tons of other little smaller medical offices. So there's a lot of healthcare opportunities and facilities within just that one city. Comparably speaking, I've helped a lot of healthcare professionals move into Kansas City, and I've never heard one of them complain about the cost of healthcare here in Kansas City. I think that they make a little bit less than when they come here to Kansas City versus going to, say, Florida or some other larger cities. They might make a little bit more, but for the most part, I've never heard of anybody complaining about the healthcare being really, really high. It does give me perspective, even though bestplaces.net ranks Kansas City as 102.3 on the national average, so we're a little bit higher on that. I haven't heard that from my clients. And just to give you perspective, we're a self-employed family, so our healthcare costs are going to be a little bit different. But for giving you perspective, my son hurt his leg recently, and our healthcare did not cover any kind of PT. He ripped one of his hamstrings and he's been in a ton of pain. So we opted to go ahead and put him through some PT. Every single visit, it costs us $95. So we're like, dude, you better be doing your exercises because this is expensive. But from an overall perspective, we don't go to the doctor very much. We try and eat healthy. We just do our normal checkups. And that's about it. So I did just want to give you some perspective of where our family comes from. We also don't have a ton of medication that we use, so I don't have a real good sense of how medication costs in perspective to other cities. I hope that you got some tremendous value out of me just covering some of the costs of living in Kansas City. And if you know somebody who's considering moving here, be sure and have them reach out to me. Also, please forward this video to them, especially if they are considering it and just want to know like what some of the costs are involved in living in Kansas City. And if you are considering making some decisions, look in the description below and you'll find my contact information. Again, I've given you a link to my calendar and you can go ahead and schedule a time to meet with me. Me and my team would love to help you with determining whether or not Kansas City is a good fit for you and your family. And I invite you, make some comments below. I want to hear what costs of living are where you're at, or if you have any questions about cost of living in Kansas City, or if there's a certain area of Kansas City that you are wanting me to do a video on, comment below, because that is going to help boost this video and it's going to help other people determine and learn about our city as well. And in the meantime, go out and have your best Kansas City life.